Welcome to another episode of Grind Culture Podcast. I am Ed.
And I am Colton.
And we want to start off with a thank you. A thank you for just listening to us again, being in this space with us while we talk about coffee and everything life. So,
yep, heck yeah.
Big thank you to you guys. And additionally, I wanted to say, I wanted to ask the public, or at least whoever listens to us, Colton brought this up, and I thought it was a good point. Why do you listen to us? So do you listen to us because you're trying to learn about coffee? Do you listen to us because you want to learn about us? Are you interested in our banter? Are you interested in our topics? Anything. Why? Just give an example on the comments why you listen to us, and maybe we could, I don't know, take something from it. Take one of those comments and maybe write along like one of the topics of an episode with it.
Yeah, see if there's like more points that we need to start hitting, especially if there's like multiple people of things that we might be missing or anything like that. But if you are listening to this, comment below or write in podcast, whatever you need to do.
Definitely do that.
And let us know what brings you here.
So, a little late on this episode.
Yeah, we took a week off. I had to take a week off.
Yeah, life happens, as we said before, and we're back, and we are still here. We see each other every day. We just try to make time to do our podcast together.
Yep.
So we're here now, and today I want to kind of start off again with just catching up on ourselves and what we've been up to.
Yep.
I think you mentioned last episode you moved into a new house, you're enjoying the space.
Yep.
Being in a house is totally different from an apartment. But I wanted to bring this up. You did, right. Which will kind of tie into this. You did show me a picture of your new brew bar.
Yes.
Now, tell me the process of how that went. I'm going to try to put a picture of it while we're talking about this. How did that process go? Did you already have like an idea of like what you wanted in the process of moving into your spot, or did you find it while you were moving into your spot or after you're moving into your spot? And then like, did you like aesthetic wise, design wise, was it like a collaboration between you and Brittany, or was it kind of just like a you thing since you are the coffee maker? No disrespect to Brittany, because I don't know if she makes coffee.
She does not.
Okay. So,
it's my thing.
Okay. So how did
she
that
just
go?
enjoys the coffee.
Oh yeah, I know that.
So I've always wanted like a brew bar because we've been in an apartment and all my coffee gear has just been on the counter in our kitchen, and it was nice, but like I had way too much stuff to handle, and a lot of it was in the cupboard. So it's like, man, one day I will have a brew bar and it will be out and it will be displayed and it will be nice.
Yeah.
And I can just host people right there rather than like being in a little kitchen space. So I already knew when we got a house, I was like, heck yeah, I can get a brew bar finally. So I already kind of knew aesthetically like what I wanted. I wanted something like light wood, like bamboo look, like a clean, just nice. Because a lot of my coffee gear is that light wood look, especially like my accessories for my espresso machine, my kettle, things like that. It's like light wood. So I wanted something that matched that. So kind of already had in my head what I wanted, and I found one that was online. It was like perfect, so ordered it, and took forever. It's actually funny because I finally got it after like 7 days. I was like, yes. I like took every piece out, and it's like one of those like IKEA things where it's like 50 pieces, and you gotta spend like 5 hours putting it together. It was gnarly.
Yeah.
I'm taking all the pieces out. I see all the numbers. I'm like, dang, there's like 50 pieces. Oh my gosh. And then I get to the final piece, the brew bar, like the counter part, and it snapped in half.
No
like it was
way.
like the bottom one, and it was snapped in half from them shipping it to me. So I had to go through the whole process. I had to write them, send them pictures, and then they had to send me the piece, which took like another 7 days to get to me. So
I had no idea.
it was a long anticipating time until I got it, but it was worth it. And then I finally put it together, and then finally, it was funny because I was like, finally put it together. I was stoked. I bring over my espresso machine. I put on my espresso machine, and it didn't fit on like the shelving was too low, and the top of my espresso machine hit it. It had like a quarter of an inch to go, and I was like, no. So I actually had to like customize it, take off like one shelf so I had a taller space for it, fit it in. It worked out, but
Yeah,
I
it
was
looks
like,
nice.
it was just like after all the waiting, I was like, dang, it didn't fit. It's because I have done mods to my espresso machine, and that little box that I put on top of my espresso machine, that was actually what made it too tall. So yeah, that was that. But now I'm stoked. Now I can have people over. It looks great. I can display all my coffee gear and
yeah, it looks very nice. I mean, just the picture that I've seen, I was like, well, it makes me want to get one. I don't have the space for it. Even though I live in a house, like there's just not enough space for me in my kitchen because my kitchen's pretty small. But it did make me like rethink like what should I do as far as like trying to make my brew bar better.
Right.
Because right now I just have a drip machine and my espresso machine sitting on the counter, like on the very edge of the counter space that I have in my kitchen.
Yep.
And it's nice, like it does the job, but I feel like it could be a little bit more personalized. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe I should just appreciate that I have an espresso machine in general, but I don't know. Once you see the effort that you put into like something that you love, it kind of like motivates me. I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that because we use it every day. I'm assuming you use yours every day.
Oh yeah.
But it's very nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I really love it.
So you've been using it every day?
Every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I haven't had anybody over. I've had my brother over. My brother and my mom come over once, and I've made coffee for them. But I haven't had the pleasure of having friends over yet and breaking that bad boy in. Like, I'm down to, like, sit at my bar for, like, 3 hours and just serve people drinks. That'd be awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Speaking of your brother, we'll have him on soon. I think we mentioned that. But he's one of the requested guests that we do want on eventually. But I never asked about your brother as far as his coffee habits and is he a coffee drinker? Does he drink as much coffee as you do? Is he like into coffee like you?
So he's actually the one that kind of got me into coffee.
Oh, really?
Not really into coffee, but he kind of pointed me in that direction, kind of like, so like, he kind of let me know that there was like good coffee out there. Rather than just like your generic stuff. And I know I've talked about my coffee pass before, but like that wasn't really topic in it. But it was one of those things where like he was like more into coffee, like making French presses and stuff, and like making good coffee and ordering it whole bean, and then then he kind of got me into it. And then once I kind of dipped my toes into having coffee be my career, then I fully took over. Now I'm like the coffee nerd, and now I'm the one teaching him things. And like sometimes
student becomes a teacher.
Right. So he's actually like, he listens to each and every single one of our episodes, and he learns, and he's an addict as well. So
that's cool. I didn't know he got you into coffee, or he was like the starting point of that.
Yeah, it wasn't really a starting point of coffee, I would say. It was more of like the hey, there's better coffee out there. Like, I was already into coffee, drinking coffee, going and getting coffee, but he was more of like pointing me in the right direction of specialty coffee, I guess they were saying, even though he didn't really know there was like this whole side of things. But he definitely he was making French presses way before I was.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. Shout out to him. So that brings us to kind of the topic of what our episode is going to be about today, and that's just machines that are used in general, and not specifically. I mean, to me, just the detail of the machine, but like not the inner workings, but just like how machines are used from one another and how you can use them properly, the workings of them, and how it produces good coffee.
Yeah, and if you're in the coffee industry, I hope that these upcoming tips and information will help you. Yeah. And really help you not waste money, because that is probably one of the biggest things. Is you get into coffee, there's all these things, you start learning, you're like, it starts getting overwhelming, and then you buy all this stuff, and then you regret buying some of that stuff because it either was like not good enough, or it was good enough and you just didn't know how to use it, that type of thing. So
yeah, I almost actually ran it. I didn't almost, and that wasn't recently, but I did run into that when I have a Breville, and we'll jump to espresso machines later, but I have a Breville at home, and I was just using the standard puck, and the, what do you call that?
The portafilter?
The portafilter that it came with, and I wanted to upgrade it with a bottomless
Nice.
one. And I've seen videos of this before. It's funny. The meme goes like, you want to be an espresso expert until this happens. There's just espresso just spewing out the bottom of the bottomless filter.
Yeah.
And it just gets everywhere. And that happened to me maybe like the first 2 weeks. I was like, this is really pissing me off. And eventually, like, I found out the amount of coffee I needed to put into this new puck that I have. I kind of identify the grind that it needs to be because that was very important. And the heat pressure, the water pressure of my Breville, and the very minimal amount of alterations I can do to it. And now it just pours perfectly every time.
Nice.
And learning that is rewarding, and it takes effort. So like you said, if you are getting into coffee or you're a coffee expert and you struggle like me, just know there's ways to make it possible to where you're not getting that spew espresso all over your white counter. It comes down very beautifully and aesthetically.
Opens up the coffee and just starts dripping, and then it oozes down.
It's a beautiful sight, honestly.
It's a beautiful thing.
But could you run us through, I see your notes here, could you run us through just like the beginning of before you put your coffee into a machine, what is like the standard practice of identifying good coffee before you put it into an actual machine?
So a lot of people think like, oh, it's my brewer, not the coffee. That's why my coffee sucks. So I need to get, a $1,000 espresso machine. And then all of a sudden you have this $1,000 espresso machine, you're using the same coffee from Costco or wherever it is, it's your generic coffee, and you're still getting crappy coffee. Well, your coffee sucks. There's no machine that can make crappy coffee good, unless you, of course, cover up that crappy coffee with sweet stuff like creamer. Right? We all know that. But if you are a coffee geek like us, if you're into tasting black coffee, if you're in the notes, if you want something fresh, something that's not so harsh for your gut, something that's actually good for you, good quality, then yes, seek out specialty grade coffee. And like you guys know, we have mentioned before, find a local roaster, make sure that it is specialty grade, and make sure that your coffee is fresh. So find good coffee, specialty grade, make sure it's fresh, as fresh as you can get. Like here, when someone orders coffee from me or you, we roast it and ship it the same day. That way, when it gets to them, it is at its like peak freshness. And even if that coffee was a month old, it would still be considered really, really fresh. So find somebody that supplies coffee in that sense. And then also order whole bean, because if you're ordering, and I know you've had this issue too, and I know I had that issue when I was beginning too, is I didn't have a good grinder. I had one of those crappy blade grinders where you put the coffee in, you push a button, and it just demolishes everything, and you get powder, you get chunks, you get just really bad distributed coffee. So really seek out whole bean coffee. If you're ordering it that way, it's going to be at its best. And then, of course, you want to take that whole bean coffee and you want to, and this is the most important, I think it's the most important thing when it comes to extracting coffee, is the grinder that you're using. And you know that, or you have learned. Your grinder is your biggest investment you should make. Even if it's like $1,000, you won't regret it. It's like if you have a semi good like brewing method, if you have a okay espresso machine, if you have a really good grinder, it's really gonna help make up that difference, right? So make sure you have a good grinder. I don't know, maybe we can link a few good ones down below. Like I even myself, I couldn't afford a really expensive espresso grinder, so I got a $200 hand grinder that was really good for espresso. I've been using that ever since. I still use it till this day. I love that thing. Works great for my espresso. And then I also have a separate grinder for my pour overs. Really nice, from Fellow. Love that thing. That's really good for anything from French press all the way to gosh, how fine can it go? To like AeroPress. So grinder is key. And then extraction after that, like I just mentioned. Once you put all those together, once you have the coffee, once you have the grinder, once you have the equipment, all that stuff, it comes down to, okay, how well am I going to extract this coffee? Because you can do all those steps, you can have good coffee, and then you get to the point where you're making a pour over, you're pouring a shot of espresso or something, and you just don't know how to dial it in. You don't know what tools to use. You don't know ratios. You don't know any of those things. And you get a crappy extraction, and your coffee sucks after taking all those steps. And it's like you feel overwhelmed. You feel like, dang it, why am I even doing this? Why did I even, spend a little bit more money on this specialty grade coffee when it just tastes like crap? It's like, no, you're just brewing it wrong.
Right.
So you got to self-teach yourself. You got to take classes. You got to YouTube some stuff and figure out how you can best extract that coffee.
Yeah, or listen to us. Maybe we'd help you.
Yep. And then finally, the last thing I didn't mention was water is very important as well.
Yeah, the type of water.
Yeah, the type of water.
I see storage on whole bean. How do you store your whole beans?
Yes. So I store them in airtight containers. They're like vacuum sealed. So I put the beans in, just and takes all the air out, and then it keeps it really fresh. So, and then I put them in a dark cabinet because it says like a dark cabinet. In airtight containers, the best way to seal your coffee. Or if you know you're not going to drink it for like a few months, then you can vacuum seal it and stick it in the freezer, and that will preserve it a lot longer.
Yeah, I heard of that.
But one thing to never do is put your coffee in the refrigerator.
And why is that?
It actually gets that, how like refrigerators give that like funky like taste to things. They absorb water or any of the, it kind of makes the coffee stale in that sense. A lot of people think it preserves the freshness, but it absolutely does not.
Yeah.
It's better to just keep it in a airtight container and put it in the cabinet.
And freeze it.
Out of direct sunlight, or vacuum seal it and freeze it.
Freeze it, yeah. I need to be better about that, but like you said, first I need to get a good grinder. I do have like a little hand grinder that I took from here that works really well. The Fair one.
Oh yeah, that one's great.
Or Flair.
Flair, yeah.
I need to bring that back. But
Nobody uses it right now, so don't worry.
But I do need like an automated one, or at least I want one. So back to that. When you say, I've heard the word extraction before, and I know what it means. I know like visually what extraction is, and like how important it is to achieve a good extraction.
Right.
But to people that don't know, extraction, what is extraction to you? It's like the relationship that the coffee has with the water in order for it to have good output, right? When it comes to different machines, the extraction method is different, obviously.
Right.
But an extraction, in my eyes, in my terms, is the methodology of your coffee to water, and the process of which any of different kind of variables it takes to make that relationship with the coffee and the water taste or create something that is drinkable. Not even only drinkable, that is quality.
Right.
To whoever's making it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I think that's what extraction is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because if you think about it, it's your cup of coffee is mostly water, right? And the rest of it, the coffee part, isn't going to be that much. So extraction to me is just how much of that coffee you're actually getting out of the coffee bean. Like if you're doing a pour over, and if you go too coarse, you're not going to extract a lot of those soluble goodness out of there.
Right.
But if you go too fine, you're going to choke it up. It's going to be hard to, really get a good extraction out of that, or you're going to over extract it to where it doesn't taste good. It's bitter, it's burnt, it's whatever you might want to call it. Right. So it's all about finding that good medium ground, that good extraction level. A lot is there's ratios to every brewer and every recipe, and it's going to be impossible to name them all here. But I can tell you, like cold brew, like your standard cold brew is supposed to be like 1 to 7.
Yeah.
Right. Your Your standard pour over is supposed to be 1 to 6. And your standard espresso is supposed to be like 1 to 2. Right. So that's just like a good base to start. And then each recipe obviously is going to be different for extraction. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to bring that term up a lot, I think, in this
Yes.
discussion, which is why I kind of wanted to identify it first. But yeah, that's a really good way to put it. So French press. French press, the process of French press is, for people that don't know, or if you've seen one before, you get, what kind of ground coffee would you normally put in a French press? Coarse, right?
Yeah. So like cold brew is going to be your coarsest coffee that you're going to use, but you're probably going to want to go a little bit coarse or a little bit finer than cold brew. So it's kind of like that percolator, you know. For French press, I learned that, and this, again, it's really important how you grind it, because if you have a crappy grinder that's just chopping it up and you have like half coarse, half fine, it's going to be really hard to make a really good French press. So again, your grinder really matters in this, especially for a French press. So for grind size, it's really good to go in between cold brew and drip. So kind of like right in that middle.
Okay.
Still coarse though.
And then this is what I gave up French press when I discovered like espresso and like pour overs, like completely, because like I think I said, French press was kind of my introduction of like good coffee. But once I found out that I could utilize different machines and different coffee, French press, it just went in my cabinet and it's like collecting dust and spider webs. But I never went back to French press and kind of like try to make a good French press. Now that I know that good water is needed and water temperature is important, and the amount of time that you leave the water brewing in the French press with the coffee, I never ever timed it. I never cared about the water quality or the temperature of the water. Never, ever, ever.
Nope. So a lot of people don't, and they freaking love it.
Yeah. So go run through that. If like, give it an example, like a standard example, if you know it, of what is good temp for water for a French press, what is good timing for a French press, and what is the ratio to a French press to or water to coffee.
Yeah, I got the recipe, and it's awesome. It's funny because you said you gave up French press. I kind of did too, but I did go back at one point because I saw some videos of people making like a really good French press recipe, and I was like, I wonder if it's like actually that legit. Because I was like, I got to a point where I was like, oh, French press can't make a good enough coffee for me. I'm on to pour overs and stuff. But then I saw people coming out with this recipe, and I was like, oh, dang, you can get like a really good cup of coffee out of the French press if you do it right, if you know what you're doing. So I went back and I found a really solid recipe, and it's actually my like go-to. Like if I have a bunch of people over and I just want to like, or if I just go somewhere, it's usually I know someone's gonna have a French press, so I'm like, I could make a really good cup of coffee out of there with the French press, as long as they have an okay grinder. But then there too, I always grind the coffee before and bring it as like a gift or wherever I am, you know. So I don't remember the grams that I'm putting into a French press. I don't have that. I have it written down, but I usually shoot for a 1 to 16, maybe make it a little stronger. So like 1 to 14 ratio. So for whoever doesn't know what that means is, say I put like 20 grams of coffee. Actually, nope. I can remember now. So I usually put, and if you have like your standard size French press, I usually put like 70 to 75 grams of coffee in that. And then when I say 1 to 14 ratio, I times that 70 by 14, and that's how much water I'm going to pour on top. When it comes to water temperature for that, it matters what roast level your coffee is. Like if it's a light roast, I'm going to go as hot as you can go, right at boiling. So I'm going to go like 212 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's a medium, I go to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. And then if I go, which I never do dark roast, but if I did, I would go down to like 195 just because it's already kind of burnt and bitter. So water temperature really does play a role in extraction when you're doing a French press like that. So coffee, water, good water, and fill that bad boy up, let it go to the top, and then you're going to time it. So make sure everything gets wet. You're going to time it. And it's a lot like the cuppings that we do. So for anybody that doesn't know, we do a lot of cuppings here, especially recently. We've been doing a lot more cuppings to test the quality and the flavor of all of our coffees. It's the exact same kind of thing as a cup of when we do cuppings to a French press. So a lot you'll recognize when I'm explaining this recipe. But you fill it up with water, you start your timer, you let that go to like 4 to 5 minutes, depending on how strong you want it, and then you break the crust on top, so everything kind of sinks to the bottom, and then you wait until like 12 minutes. And then that way everything has time for those fines to settle to the bottom of that French press. And then you kind of do the cupping thing where you take out all the fines that have floated to the top, because you don't want that in your cup of coffee. So you take that out, you put it in a cup, and then you're ready to pour it in the cup. And a lot of people think like, oh, I should press this thing down, because it's a French press, and then I'll just pour it into the cup and it'll be fine. It's like, no, actually, if you put that sucker all the way down, it's actually gonna all that time that you just waited for that stuff to sink to the bottom, all like the bitters, you're actually going to shoot everything right back up into the coffee. So what they say is to put that filter right at the top of the level of coffee, and then slowly pour it into your cup. So you get a really like all French presses do have like a lot of body in them already, but that's more, if you pour it nice and slow, it's actually more like of a cleaner cup.
Interesting.
And then the more like you pour more towards the bottom you get towards those grounds that already sank, you will get a little bit heavier body of a cup. So that's my go-to recipe for a French press.
That's very detailed. What?
We should do an instructional video just because
we should.
Be a lot easier.
We'll get there. The coarseness of a 1 to 14 seems like a lot to me when the ratio wise. Is that because usually when you have coarser coffee, the water is important to have more of than the coffee? Is that why or no?
So you're actually going to have less water to coffee, if that makes sense. So it's going to be stronger in a 1 to 14 rather than a 1 to 16.
Oh, I see.
So it's water to coffee.
Oh, okay. So maybe I just didn't identify that we use a lot of water in comparison to the amount of coffee we use. Which takes us to a coffee maker. Coffee makers, when I think of coffee maker, I think like diner coffee, like coffee makers, or
your
just
big
like standard
commercial.
And usually they have instructions of like how much coffee to put, and then they'll have like a level of like maximum water or like medium or like middle water or whatever.
Yep.
How, and I don't know if there's like variable or like variances to that. Is that like a standard size that coffee makers just all recommend on each one of their machines, you think? Because I always think of like, it's numbered, right? Like 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2.
Right.
And like, I don't even know if that's measured in anything, honestly.
I would assume like they kind of have a ratio in there, like I don't know, like water level, because a lot of times on coffee makes you'll see like the water level, and you'll see like where the cup, like the 2 to 4 cup or the 4 to 6 cup or whatever, and then you'll see like, and then you usually just guess the coffee. You're like, I'll just put a tablespoon in, or I'll put 2 or whatever. Like, oh, it's 2 cups, I'll put 2 scoops in. Yeah. You just go for it. You send it, and hopefully it comes out good. And then a lot of those people, they're not drinking their coffee black, so they don't really care. They're just like, let's get some freaking caffeine real quick in my coffee pot, and that way I can just cream it up real quick, and then I'll be good to go. I'll get my kick, and simple as that. That's all people really care about. So I mean, some people.
Yeah. Then there's really nothing to like a coffee machine that we could really identify, unless you know something. But I feel like coffee machines have made the reputation to where it's kind of like a free for all. You do what you got to do to get whatever kind of coffee you want, and then have at it.
Yeah. So your standard home user, yes, there's not a lot you can really do unless you know, like open the top, you do like hot water on it on first, let it bloom a little bit, and then start that. Like, I think that's like the best thing you could possibly do. Let your coffee like open up a little bit before you just douse it with water. But they do make brewers. We had one here at one time. It actually had a bloom phase. So you had like the spout on top, you push start, and then it put out like a little bit of water to wet the grounds, let it open up, stop putting water on it, let it open up for like a minute, and then it did the rest of the brew, which makes it a little bit better. So there is those coffee brewers that are a little nicer. If you want, your specialty coffee to go through one of those things, if you want the best, don't just, buy your standard one at home, or one at the store. But there's also a company, Mocha Master. I know that they make really nice one. They do have like the bloom phase, and there's actually like multiple drawdown phases where there's like 4 or 5 pours where it, you know, pours it, waits, pours it, waits. That way you just get better extraction again out of that coffee.
Yeah.
But they're expensive. They're like $250 to $300, and it's like, the people that are using those machines and the coffee that they like, they don't want to spend that much money on one of those machines.
That seems silly considering pour over like a pour over flask you could get for what, like $20, even
Right.
like at its cheapest maybe.
Yeah. And then like, I guess if we're talking commercial, then this is where batch brew comes in. So like if you ever see batch brew, or like when you go to a coffee shop or a specialty coffee shop and you see batch brew or just like cup of coffee, that's what they're using. It's like a more of a specialty grade, like commercial brewer. That is kind of like the Mocha Master, just like bigger, you know, so it still has like bloom phase and then multiple pours. So
I want to jump from coffee maker to pour over, because I think there's a lot of similarities to it specifically when you're talking about those style coffee machines, because people do want to mimic the bloom phase and automate it so you don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But me doing this right now, I feel like there's an art, or there is a skill. It's not even skill. There's just a craft to making sure you're doing even the bloom right, where I feel like a machine can't really mimic that.
No.
That motion that you would need, or that people often do when they're doing a bloom and a pour over. So why would you even try to buy a machine that can't really mimic the right steps for a good pour over, aka a nice bloom phase?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. So can we talk about first pour over, like the methodology of doing a good pour over, including the bloom phase?
Yeah. Can I ask you first, what's your go-to like recipe on a pour over?
I don't think this is right, but I learned this from Mac's blog a long time ago.
I don't know who that is.
Mac Cam.
Oh, I thought you said Mac's blog. I was like,
Yeah, Mac.
like Mac, like MAX. I was like, who's Mac's blog?
Mac.
Okay.
Big Mac Brooks.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first started here, I wasn't really a pour over guy.
Yeah.
But the reason why I wanted to start doing it is because of his blog. Because I didn't really know how to do it, even though we had one at home. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll just follow this blog. So I think I know I'm wrong on this, because I really made mine like very simplistic.
Right.
So this is mine.
It could be right. If it tastes good, it's right.
It does the job.
There you go.
So I put 20 grams of coffee, depending on what coffee it is, in the filter, a top filter. Not even that. First, I heat up water to 210 to 212, depending on what coffee I'm using. And then I'll take some of that water when it hits 160, and I'll pour it over the filter to kind of get that taste out of the filter.
Yep.
The paper filter.
Yep.
And then I'll empty the water out of the pour over, and then I'll put the kettle back on whatever I'm heating up the kettle with, and get it to 210 to 212. But while it's heating up, I believe it's 20 to 22 grams. Like, I forget what it is. It's usually just embedded in my brain.
Right.
I put that amount of coffee into the filter, and then once it hits 212, I pour very methodically the water, and I try to hit. I have a scale that I have my pour over on that
Sweet.
measures the water in grams, I think.
Yep.
And I hit. Is it 45 grams? I hit 45 grams at first, and I put on the timer for 30 seconds, because it also has a timer on it. So I let it bloom for 30 seconds to 35 seconds, and then I'll stop it. I'll hit another. See, I'm at 45. I'll get it from 45 to 150, and then I'll do another minute of it just pouring down.
Okay.
And then after that minute's up, I'll pause it, and I'll finish it off at 3 to 305 to 310, depending on what coffee whatever, if it's medium or light,
Okay.
I'll hit it to 310 grams total of
Mm-hmm.
water, and let it pour for another minute. And then once it's done pouring for another minute, usually all the water has seeped through.
Right.
I'll take off the filter right away, so none of the back coffee goes in it, and then I'll pour it into a cup.
Sweet. I mean, that's good. It's a good
Mhm.
recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Your final weight was 310 or 305?
310.
Okay, so you're doing like a 1 to 115.5 to 1 to 16 ratio.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's not what his recipe is. I know for a fact because I was like, okay, because I see 320 there,
Uh-huh.
and I was like 320. I don't know why 320 just seems off to me. I'm just gonna do 300, and then I jumped it up to 310. So maybe I will start jumping up to 320. But at first I was like, I don't want to. I just want 300. Just seems like an even number to me. So I always
Yep.
made it just even 300, and then I jumped it up to 310 because of
Mhm.
the taste eventually.
Yeah. So if you're doing like 300, so that's like 1 to 15. That's a good like strong cup of coffee. But if you like a more like tea-like coffee, if you if you want if you have a very fruity coffee and you want it to be floral and bring out those things, then you can go all the way up to 1 to 17 ratio, which is really good because that would be more like a cleaner cup rather than like a body.
Mm-hmm.
Like 115 is a little more body, more like syrupy mouthfeel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you like that, then that's great.
Yeah.
As long as you're right there, like 115 to 117, I think that's the ballpark. And that's why a lot of people do 1 to 16 because that's like right in the middle
Right.
of them both. So
Mhm.
it's safe.
Yeah.
You get the best of both worlds.
Right. Which is what, 320?
Yeah.
Yeah, 320.
hmm
So how do you do it? What's your method?
So it's hard to say because I have like 5 different pour over brewers at home. I have like a cone shape, which is the V60. I have like 3 flat bottom brewers. Those have different recipes, but my go-to, I'll just go with my go-to because I can talk about pour overs all day because it's my
Yeah.
favorite way to make coffee.
Yeah, go to.
So my go-to is, and I have 2 ways I do this because either I'm making 1 cup for me or making 2 cups, 1 for me, 1 for Brittany. So it just matters. But I'll do the 1 cup. So a lot like you, I'll do 20
Okay.
to 20 grams in. I'm going to go with my old recipe. Right now I'm experimenting, so it's kind of hard. I just watched a video and this guy's he's ruining my traditional way of making it. So I'm like,
Okay.
So I'll just stick with my traditional though.
Yeah.
Before I
What
go
guy
too
is
deep.
it, by the way?
Lance Hedrick.
Oh, okay.
If you don't know Lance Hedrick, he's probably one of the biggest coffee YouTubers out there.
Okay.
He actually works at Onyx.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Mm-hmm. He has good everything about coffee. He makes us look really stupid. He's just to be blunt, he's been in coffee for over a decade. He is very, very knowledgeable. He knows everything and everyone in the coffee world. So that's actually kind of where I learned all my coffee stuff, coffee related things. So shout out to him. Check out his stuff if you need help with anything. He's messing me up because now he's introducing this new method of pouring over, and I'm like, I kind of want to do it. So I'm experimenting with that. Maybe I'll talk about it on another episode once I dial it in.
Yeah.
But my go-to is 20 grams in. I like to do, so I always use light roast. I'm never really on medium or dark. So this is light roasted, good coffee. Same with you. I boil it to 210. I put 20 grams of coffee in. I do pre-rinse the filter, everything, get that paper taste out of there. I do preheat the brewer. That way everything's nice and warm when I'm doing my pour over. So I put 20 grams in. And then I do a 1 to 3. So 20 grams in, that means my first pour is going to be 60 grams of coffee. I like to go all the way up to 60. So I'll do 60. I'll give it a little twirl, and then I'll let it bloom up to a minute. So
okay.
if it's really, really light, I'll actually go up to like a minute 15 sometimes just to get a really big extraction out of it. But sometimes that's a little sketchy because you can over extract it right there and then. So my go-to is 1 minute.
Okay.
So I'll do up to 1 minute, and then once I hit 1 minute, I'll do my second pour, and I usually go up to like 230, I think is my next pour. So I'll pour slowly, usually just like in a circular motion. I'll make sure to get everything kind of wet. And then it hits 230. I'll wait. I'll let it draw down about halfway. And then once it kind of the water level is halfway, I don't want to see the grounds. I still want it to be brewing the whole time. So, and then I just do center, right in the center. I just fill it up all the way to my final weight, which is 320. But I do mess with ratio sometimes. So 320 if I want 1:16. I'll go up if I want to like sometimes I'll go like 330 if I want a little bit more like brighter cup. But sometimes if you put too much water in, it's just going to taste kind of just watered down. So it's kind of scary to go above 320 sometimes. So 315, 320 is like my go-to. And then I'll let it draw down.
So you're making me think about this. So my second pour of water, there is a very instant moment of when my ground coffee hits air and it's not brewing in water. I wonder if that messes up the brewing process if it's not brewing consistently, if there's water stopped and it hits air and then you start brewing it again.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Right.
Maybe I should stop doing that.
Yeah, I don't let it see air. I let the water stay on top the whole time. Because I've learned that you can over extract it if you wait that long. You'll get a lot more bitter cups out of that. At least from what I've done.
No, I want to try it now.
Like if I go like do my second pour and I walk away for a second, I come back and the water's already drained. I'm like, oh dang, I got to finish my pour.
Yeah.
It actually turns out to be like a bad cup of coffee most of the time.
That makes sense.
So you're over extracting.
I got to change my method. Good to know.
And what's cool with pour overs too is we should have just done a whole episode on pour overs because I feel like we can talk about this forever. But what's cool about with pour overs is you can really control the outcome with your grinder.
Yeah.
And your grind size. It's like the best thing you can possibly do if you want a good cup of coffee out of a pour over is have a good grinder. It's like if it's too coarse and then the drawdown was like way too fast, if it just went right through the coffee, it's like, you're going to get a crappy cup. But you tighten it up a little bit, fine it up, and then you can just, like, you don't have to mess with anything else. It's just the grind size. So invest in a good grinder when you're doing pour overs for sure.
What is a good grind size for pour overs?
Kind of like table salt, maybe a little coarser.
Oh, table salt. That's a good way to kind of envision it.
Just a really nice, like even distributed, like table salt. Not like the fine table salt, like a little coarser table salt.
And you said you have a Fellow to grind your pour
I have the
overs with?
Fellow Gen 2, the Fellow O Gen 2 grinder, and that's great. I love it. It's freaking awesome. And the guy Lance Hedrick that actually I was just talking about, he actually helped design the burrs that are in that grinder.
Oh, that's cool.
So him and the makers of Fellow actually collabed together on making the burrs, and they wanted it to be like the new burrs that were really good actually for pour overs themselves. So
yeah. So all this being said, going back to the coffee makers or the coffee brewers, the automated ones, even with the technology behind spouting water for a little bit to mimic the bloom and then doing the remainder of water extraction, you still don't think that it could mimic an actual pour over style coffee, right? A coffee maker.
I'd say the best coffee maker out there, home coffee maker. I'm not talking about coffee shop commercial ones because they do make really good ones at coffee shops, but no one's going to go spend 10 grand to put one on their counter at home and have a water line hooked up to it and everything. So I'd say if you spend, the $300 for buying the home brewer, I would say max you would get 70% of the best out of that coffee that you could, like compared to a pour over. If you had like a side by side, the best you get out of the home brewer is maybe 70% of that coffee.
Yeah,
there's no way you're matching the pour over level. So
that's what I figured. I find it hard to believe that it could, unless like before I got out of the previous job that I had, I know like my company was getting into like Crobotics, which is like arm robots,
Oh yeah.
which kind of just like mimics people's arms,
Mhm.
I guess.
Right.
You know, like it's like stands on something like a little tripod like
Yeah.
this, except it's way more sophisticated, and there's like joints
Yeah.
that mimic like the rotation of an arm. And I've seen videos and examples of when we were trying to get into this business, people from Germany that created these Crobots
Hmm.
used coffee making as an example of what it can do.
Yeah. Were they doing like latte art?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw those. Yeah.
So essentially,
Cool.
I was like, oh yeah, you could put those in stores to automate it.
Mhm.
You could automate it that way,
Right.
but just like a standard like at home like coffee brewer, I find it hard to believe that you can
Right.
make a pour over like that.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah.
70% at best.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
well said. Going back to the French press. Well, when I see the AeroPress, it reminds me a lot of the French press. I never, still haven't done the AeroPress, but I've seen Nate do it, I think, here, and I've seen Gavin do it.
Mm.
Maybe I've seen you do it. I don't know. Have you made an AeroPress here ever?
A couple times here, but more just at home.
Yeah. To me, it looks kind of similar to a French press, but it's not, right? It's
No. So you can like put a filter in an AeroPress. You can get attachments for an AeroPress. I have one at home, like, because you know how the bottom of an AeroPress, you attach it and it's like a bunch of little holes.
Mm-hmm.
There's an attachment that you can actually put on where it locks out the water and it ups the pressure when you put it down. So you can actually do more of like an espresso styled shot out of an AeroPress. AeroPresses are freaking underrated. Like they're legit. I don't even know if they're underrated. People just don't know how good they are. But the people that know about them, they know like how legit they are, because you can literally you can match, if your recipe's right, you can literally match a cup of a pour over. And you can match the quality. You can get a decent espresso shot out of it. I probably can't match a really good espresso machine, but you can get an okay shot out of an AeroPress. They're just really like convenient, you know, and they make a good clean cup of coffee. It's really just about knowing how it works and knowing the recipe. And you can make like really good iced coffee out of them, stuff like that. Like if you press it on ice, things like that. So, and they're quick. They're really quick. You make a quick cup of coffee really good.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that are very, I don't want to say anti, but I do want to say like very, I neglect AeroPresses because, I don't know, they don't seem intimidating to me. They just remind me of a French press.
Yeah.
And to me, that I don't want, it's in my world, in its archaic way of making coffee, because of all the other machines that we even have here or that I have at home, like
Yeah.
it just doesn't intrigue me.
Right. It's just like sitting there.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
Yeah.
everybody that has used it here, seems to be including you, always says good things about it.
Yeah, it's
And, like,
great.
they use it a lot. So maybe I should try it.
it's like a good traveling brew unit to have.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're at home, you don't really use it. You'd rather do a pour over or make a shot of espresso.
But don't you also have to have like a paper filter with it too? Or no?
Yeah, but they come with it usually, like a bunch.
Oh, really?
So,
Then maybe that's another thing as to why I don't like to use it. But I use pour overs and I use paper filters with that too. So maybe I'm just being a big baby.
nah, man, I think you're right along with everybody else. It's just kind of an accessory on their brew bar, and they're like, I don't really freaking use that thing. It's great. It's just sitting there.
So I have a lot to say on espresso machines.
Yeah, me too.
And we're already almost at an hour.
Oh shoot.
So I think we should hold this off to a part 2 of
Okay.
of the espresso machine portion, because I do want to talk about espresso machines, K-cups, but other ways of making espresso.
Okay.
Kind of like the stovetop espresso maker.
Okay. Yep.
Because that was a way that I got into espresso,
Right.
espresso in general.
Yep.
So I
Mocha
think
Master and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should part 2 this
Okay.
discussion of coffee machines. But because I'm going to release this here this weekend. Again, for anybody that is watching, please comment about any other type of machines that we may have missed today or that you want us to bring up next episode, because there are so many different kinds of ways that people make coffee. we jotted down kind of the known ways,
Yeah.
the more popular ways. We don't even talk about like an espressos, which I kind of want to hit up, or talk about when we make cake, or we talk about K-cups, even though
Yeah.
you and I are not really big fans of K-cups. People still, I see Nespresso makers on TikTok and Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to touch base on that
Yep.
too. So yeah, I think we should make a part 2 of the rest of this discussion.
Yeah, I agree. Because we're going to go for another hour talking about espresso. So.
Yeah, easily. So thank you for listening to us.
Yeah.
We'll come with a part 2 next week, and enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend, whenever you're listening, and see you next episode. Peace.
Peace.